We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We're a new generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Monday, November 18th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and you're watching News Generation. Today, we're joined by Cheska Dainhong.
Happy Monday, everyone.
Happy Monday! And Julian Kim.
Happy Monday too.
Happy Monday too. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to move on to our main discussion of the day. It's Monday, time to talk about some of the latest topics trending among the younger generation here in Korea. Now, you might have guessed why we did this in our opening, but our topic for the day was inspired by the recent hit song APT or APT by Blackpink's Rosé and American singer Bruno Mars, which has been topping music charts not only here in Korea, but also in the UK and the United States. So Cheska, could you first tell us just how viral this song has become online?
I mean, it's viral enough that we're talking about it here on News Generation today. But it's very interesting and shows the mega influence of our K-pop singer. And because of the song Apartment, which is a drinking game that is actually played among young Koreans here, and when they get together to drink, this term or jargon is actually going viral with memes and related content.
Right.
APT, which stands for apartment, is actually one of the living residence types here in South Korea.
Right, and we're seeing the music video of the song right now, and we've seen a lot of parodies being shared on social media and on the internet. So it's definitely become a huge song since its release over the past few weeks. Now, to you, Julian, are you a big fan of this song? What do you think about this?
Well, I want to say that I love this song.
You love this song.
I love this song. It is constantly on repeat whether I'm commuting or working out. And that being said, I know I'm not the only one that feels this way. This song has been extremely viral on social media with millions of posts using the audio. And Rosé's song is so catchy to the point where the chorus pata pata has been so popular that people performing for the Suneung or the Korean college entrance exam have basically banned the song a month.
It's so addictive. So.
Exactly, to avoid distractions. But both content creators and celebrities have also jumped on the trend too. Sharing videos of themselves dancing to the song or actually playing the drinking game inspired by the song. And the song has also performed exceptionally well both in domestic and international music charts too.
Right, so definitely this song APT is the it song right now on the global cultural front. Now once again, the song title APT or APT is short for apartment, which is the most common type of housing here in Korea, which we're going to talk about today. And naturally, this has sparked curiosity about what apartment or APT is and Korean apartments. So I want to also ask our panelists, do you live in an apartment right now?
I actually don't now, but I have, interestingly enough, have lived in all types of housings that we will cover in the studio today.
Looking forward to the insights you'll bring to our discussion today.
Most certainly, yes.
So I currently live in an apartment. What about you, Julian?
So do I. I also live in a Korean apartment too.
Right, so out of us three, two are living, more than half are living in an apartment, which once again shows how apartment buildings are indeed the most popular type of housing here in Korea. So Cheska, do we have any stats that kind of show how popular apartments are here in the country?
Absolutely. So if you've ever traveled here in South Korea, it is impossible not to notice the skyscrapers and rows of apartment buildings, which is a very different sight from when you're traveling in Western countries. So let's take a look at the screen to find out the type of residence here in South Korea. Now, as of last year, apartments were a whopping 53%, followed by so-called detached houses, the ones we commonly see in the States, but less than 30% compared to over 50% of apartments. Then we have some townhouses, but these are not the American types of townhouses. They're more like small villas, and depending on the type, sometimes they actually have floor limits, so it can't go up to more than 4 floors. And then there's the office-style, which is a combination of the word office and residential, but this is a very common amongst MZers.
Right.
These buildings are usually very new, very flashy, and built near subway stations, but they're not so much an office, but think of more like one-room studio apartment or 1 or 2 small bedroom apartments. The only downside are that the rental prices versus the space that is offered cannot really be matched. So kind of like when you're living in Manhattan or LA, the rental prices go up for a very small space in the city.
Right. So we've taken a look at the type of housing here in Korea, And as Cheska has shown, apartments are indeed the most common type of housing, so there must be a reason for that. So after the break, we'll be joined by a millennial from Sweden who's lived in a Korean apartment to share his experience.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang.News. Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Today we're joined by John Henry, who goes by the name Swigugin, a millennial content creator from Sweden. Welcome, John, to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. So, John, I want to ask you, how long did you live in an apartment in Korea? And tell us, what was the experience like for you?
Well, first of all, I'm from Sweden, so I moved from Sweden. I lived in Korea for about 7 years, and during those 7 years, I lived in both in Gocheon and Wonlum, and then really a real Korean apartment. So I have a lot of experience.
I see.
And then compared to all the experiences that you've had, what do you think sets Korean apartment apart from others? We're really curious to hear from your experience as well.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm from Sweden, so our apartments are really old buildings that were built 100 years ago and then renovated to, meet the new standards of apartments, right? So when I first came to Korea, like the craziest thing was to see like a gochiwon, like a really small room with a shower and like a bed, and I thought that was the coolest concept ever for being a student in Korea. So, like the efficiency, I would say, is like the number one thing, really.
So going off of that, what do you think are the pros and cons of apartments when you compare it to other types of housing?
Yeah, definitely. So I lived there for a while, and then I moved to Incheon to a real apartment. And like the first thing that I noticed was the biggest pro is that all the key locks are digital. So you have your own keypad, and you can put that in, and there are no keys. Because I lose keys all the time, and I'm a really forgetful person. But in Korea, that was not a problem. So that was definitely a pro.
I see. Well, John, I want to also ask, you've mentioned earlier that you lived in other types of housing here in Korea. Could you tell us a bit more about your experience of living in an apartment, a Korean apartment, and what kind of set your experience apart from living in other types of housing?
So I lived in an office style as well, so a 2-floor. I thought that was a really cool concept. I had my bed on the upper floor and then had everything underneath. And one thing that I loved about that apartment was the heating system in the winter. It gets a little bit costly, but it's really convenient. So that set it apart from the places that I've seen before in other countries.
And last but not least, any cons or inconveniences that you felt that you wanted things to be improved? What about that?
Yes, definitely. So the first thing is like noise from neighbors. I don't know if this is like a Korean thing, but back in Sweden, our walls are really thick. They're made out of really, granite, kind of thick stone. But in Korea, they're kind of paper walls. So you can hear everything and anything from other neighbors. So noise was one big factor. The second one was there's no customization. All apartments look about the same in Korea. They're all built in the same way. I mean, from the outside, maybe a little bit different, but the inside kind of structured the same way. So I would love variety, but other than that, I had a really great experience living in Korea.
All right. Thank you, John, for sharing your experience today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Right, so John briefly talked about how apartments are like in his home country, Sweden. So we're going to talk about how apartments are like in other countries. So for example, Julian, you've lived in the States basically for your entire life. So what's the typical apartment like in the States?
Yeah, so I find a typical apartment in the United States to be bigger than the ones in Korea. They usually come with basic amenities like a refrigerator, a 4-burner stove, an oven, and some sort of laundry facility, whether it's like in unit or like a shared room. But the washing machine is never in the kitchen. And I also found that there is a more diverse selection of apartments. But here compared to other places, newer builds typically have a more of a contemporary design, but you can also find apartments that have a Victorian or a more mid-century style. And from my experience, I mainly seen more low to mid-rise apartments, but in more urban locations, there are also many high-rise apartments such as like Manhattan or downtown LA. And one thing I really enjoy about many American apartments that I haven't found here in Korea is a rooftop deck.
Oh,
Yeah, not many apartments have them though, but the nicer ones usually do. And they often come with barbecue grills, lounge chairs, and even the nicer ones have like a rooftop swimming pool. And personally for me, I really enjoy spending time on these decks. They're like a perfect place to host like a barbecue.
Right, a
and
party.
To see, yes, and to see like amazing city views right in your own house.
wow. I wish I had a rooftop deck on my apartment too. So we've taken a look at the apartment buildings in Sweden and also in the United States. Now we also asked our viewers if apartments are popular in their countries and how common they are. And here's what 3 of them said. If we look at the comments for today, Matthew Lays 6504 says apartments are becoming more common as time passes. They're the exact opposite of what we are. We're a nation of iron gates and backyards. Wonder which country you're from, Matthew. Yeah. RKZ LTV says it's a popular housing choice for young adults, but I prefer a house with a garden. Benny D97 says here in the Philippines, yes, it's common for millennials and Gen Z to live in apartments because they want to move away from their parents. So by looking at our viewers' comments, we can see that apartments are becoming more popular, especially among the younger generation. And once again, the data Cheska earlier mentioned show that more than half of the Korean population live in apartment buildings. So I want to ask our panelists, what do you think sets Korean apartments apart? What do you think is special?
Yeah, well, if you walk around any major city here in Korea, you will notice a lot of high-rise apartment complexes everywhere. And as Korea urbanized, the popularity of these apartments basically skyrocketed. So the more these apartments became prevalent, the more people started to value its amenities. People here really value convenience, and many of these apartments have amenities such as like a children's daycare center, as well as like a fitness center too. And they're also typically located in convenient locations, making access to public transportation, school, and workplaces that much more convenient. Additionally, Koreans find apartments to be a lot safer than like a single family home because they generally have a better security system, and it makes it harder for intruders to enter your house too.
Right, because we have numerous security personnel, especially in big Korean apartment complexes.
Exactly.
So security and also convenience could be some of the standout features of Korean apartments. What are your thoughts on this, Cheska?
I mean, I absolutely agree. I think one of the things that I loved most about the apartment also was definitely the convenience. And nowadays, just to add on to a little bit, they are actually building the actual infrastructure and the amenities inside the actual building.
Right.
So before, Eugene, you and I probably know this, it's apartments are usually like a complex, like a townhouse, and they would have a separate building with convenience stores, those hagwon for the children, the academies, so that they just need to step out and then travel for like 5 minutes. But now it's all in the building. So I had lived in an apartment where the entire second floor was the gym.
Wow.
It had a movie theater that you could rent. There was a one rental space that you could just sign up and
So all you need is just go down or go up.
just take the lift and then find where you want to go, which is amazing. And on top of that, Koreans are extremely familiar with apartment as a means of investment.
Right.
So we'll talk that about a little bit more, but starting in the 70s with the economic development, many would actually buy and sell real estate through apartments. And granted that there's a very limited space in the very central metropolitan area, apartment actually makes for a very efficient and effective investment for people.
Right, and this is especially catching on for the younger generation as well. Apartments seem to hold more significance than just being a home. They're seeing it definitely as a big investment opportunity. So please elaborate more on that.
Yes, and I think I'm the perfect spokesperson for
Yeah,
it.
I know.
Because I have not made an actual purchase yet. Hopefully it's coming, but of all the investment options out there, stocks, bonds, and whatnot, I actually value housing the most. And this actually happens very commonly here in Korea. And you can notice this by politicians when they come in. They always make a promise or policy related to real estate and housing. And my first priority is to own a house. And it is very common among MZers to actually start something called the 청약, which is a lottery-based subscription system. So what they do is basically it's enabling individuals to apply for the right to purchase newly constructed apartments. And applicants are also chosen through a lottery or point-based system. And it's considering various criteria, but you can actually make a bank account to own homes. And it shows how important it is for MZers to actually own a home like that. And again, this kind of happens because with the rise in the rental prices and the difficulty of owning a home, compared to the limited spacing that we have in Seoul and South Korea, owning an apartment has become, as you mentioned, not just a residential option, but a smart investment option as well.
Right, because if you're chosen for this apartment subscription system, then you can buy and own a house while paying a lower amount of money, much smaller amount of money than the original or market price of the apartment. So it's definitely becoming a big investment opportunity for young people. And we've talked about
Like
this
myself.
before on News. Yeah, so fingers crossed. Hope that you can get your apartment, Jessica.
My apartment.
Your apartment. And what do you think about this, Julian?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's just the younger generation that sees like buying a house as an investment property. Many of the older generation also feel the same way too. However, for the younger generation, I feel like we've been dealt a bad hand.
Right.
With soaring real estate prices, the MZ generation find it especially challenging to invest in property. And many young people see like owning real estate as something kind of unattainable. But despite this, there is still a very strong interest in real estate. Many young people are studying property markets, attending real estate study groups, as well as like going as far as going on property tours.
Really?
And securing future investments and their dream home too.
Wow.
I actually have friends who do that.
The property tours.
Yeah, they actually start going on these real estate tours just to check out what houses are available and what the market price is.
So that they can like study the trends.
Exactly, like study the market price and kind of figure out where they want to live. So Julian is definitely right on that.
Wow. So our younger generation is interested in real estate, as you guys mentioned, which is another reason why we are seeing a soaring popularity of apartments. And wrapping up our discussion today, this is kind of like a fun question, but do you think this APT or APT trend or sensation will continue both in terms of the music and the type of housing?
That's a very great question. I want to separate the two. So I think it's very interesting that Rose, released a song that is very Korean because I was comparing it to Gangnam Style when I first came out. So I think back then I was in the States and so many of my friends were really coming up to me and say, "What is Gangnam? Like, where is Gangnam?" And I think it's the same thing is happening with APT because it's a very Korean term. So I'm very happy with it. But again, song, entertainment is always a trend. So it will come and go. But I think the value of the apartment here in South Korea, the real estate itself, will continue because even now, or based on the last year's data, almost 70% of investment that is made in Korea is in real estate.
Right.
So that's huge compared to United States. So I do think we will definitely continue. But I did notice the shift in our younger generation's mindset in terms of wanting to move away from the city. So I do hope that the pressure would alleviate, but I do hope that my investment goes up. So it's a very, very ambivalent feeling towards the apartment.
Right. And maybe we can see more apartments like not only in the capital region.
That's true.
Spread.
Yes, and the more outskirts where the transportation is a little bit easier to come into the city. Yeah.
Right. Now, what do you think, Julian?
Well, back in the 80s, there was actually a popular song that's called APT by Yoon So-il. And back then, people used to make a joke that the only apartment they can talk about was this song, which was commonly played in like many like baseball games in Seoul when the team would like score like a victory shot. But with Rosé's new song APT, we can see a similar joke being made by the MZ generation. The concept of owning an apartment in Korea is a heavy topic, and many people stress over it. But while I can be very biased because I personally really enjoy this song, I think its relevance alongside with the ongoing importance of real estate in this country means we'll likely keep hearing about both the song as well as like the housing situation in the future. Also, Rosé is set to release her solo debut album. And with the lead single being APT, I'm sure we're going to continue hearing this song in the streets of Seoul and across the world too.
Right. So we'll see how it goes, both in terms of apartment, in terms of housing, and also the song APT.
Yes.
And that's all from Newsgen today, but we'll be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks today to Cheska Dainhong.
Pleasure's always mine. Thank you.
Thank you. And Julie and Kim.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.